At independence in 1960, the huge human and natural resources across the regions that made up Nigeria stood out as strength for an evolving country. But these were soon to be tested in what many now refer to as one of the bloodiest civil wars in history. January 15, 1966 comes a twist that upset the peace in the Nigerian military cycle, with some young officers led by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu, an Igbo officer from present-day Okpanam in Delta State, staging a coup d'etat against the then civilian government, killing dozens of people, including the Prime Minister of Nigeria, Tafawa Balewa, many senior politicians, senior army officers, many of them from the north. The officer gave reasons for the coup to include massive corruption and abuse of office. General Johnson Aguiyi Ironsi, who was the most ranking military officer, then assumes office. July 1966, the counter-coup which cut short the regime of General Ironsi, and then the emergence of Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon. Earlier, during the riot of May 1966, thousands of Easterners, mostly Igbos, were killed in many northern cities, especially in Kaduna, Kano, and Jos. The coming of Gowon to power did not stop the systematic killings. Such was the horror that attended Gowon's early days in office. By the end of 1966, thousands of refugees who were pouring into the east returned with tales of horror. A decision was then taken that soldiers and civilians should return to their region of origin. At a summit in Benin, the permanent secretaries presented a paper to Gowon that all the 4 regional military governors be replaced and new regions created to form 12 states in the federating unit. Although Ojukwu was absent at the meeting, he rejected the outcome and declared the Republic of Biafra.
The war just didn't start like that. There were stages. Things were happening, and then there were a number of conferences trying to stop it. But instead of getting better, it was getting worse. And there was preparation for war on both sides. We all knew this. And when it broke out, actually, just before it broke out, Ojukwu, who was the leader on the Biafran side, decided to release those of us who were in prison, who were in detention by Ironsi's government, and we were on the eastern side of the country at the time. So this was the area of jurisdiction of Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu. Of course, he knew he wasn't doing it just to favor us. He knew that we would be useful to him in the war.
Other unresolved issues were the ethno-religious riots in northern Nigeria, alleged persecution of Igbos living in northern Nigeria, and control of the oil-rich Niger Delta. To settle a growing national instability, political negotiations, including the famous Aburi Accord, were initiated, but none could assuage the thirst of the Easterners for our secession.
Various political attempts were made to solve the problem, going even to Aburi, meeting, the disagreement there, which really came about the interpretation what Aburi meant. And from Ojukwu, he says On Aburi we stand, and I say, from Aburi you will fall.
Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Ojukwu declares the Republic of Biafra, and this was resisted by the federal government, resulting in the war from 1967 to 1970. There was a pogrom, mass starvation, leading to death of over 2 million civilians, including women and children.
The civil war, unfortunately, had to happen as a result of breakdown of that Aburi agreement. Despite effort that was made, to see if we can reconcile our differences and really save a very serious situation. But it got to the stage whereby Ojukwu, got his Constituent Assembly to give him the go-ahead to break away from Nigeria.
While the Nigerian military had all the firepower to execute the war, the Biafran soldiers largely depended on the ingenuity of its people, who went into research and production of war equipment.
I was selected to be one of those to join research production. Professor Pius Okeke was in physics. He later on as a nuclear physicist. He's he retired. He was selected also, and then one professor there is an energy specialist. Three of us were all who I remember who were selected to work with research and production as students. So most of us, I was there. I was part of the team that produced all the bombs, all the rockets, all those equipments. There was another team that was producing armored vehicles. So they are producing armored vehicles. We use Caterpillar. This tractor. This is a Caterpillar that runs on wheel to produce armored vehicles. So Biafra produced all these equipments. And then we were able to sustain the war for that period of time.
The Eva Valley headquarters of research and production, also known as PRODA, had the best hands, some of whom came from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. 78-year-old Emeka Onyiso, who witnessed the war, sheds light on how they operated.
It will surprise you what they were able to accomplish. One of the most outstanding accomplishments was what was branded Obunigwe. I'm sure you must have heard about it. And various other things. Ubunigwe is a cone-shaped, sometimes cylindrical cluster bomb that disperses shrapnel with percussion. They even went as far as not only making these bombs, but providing guidance for quite some distance. And that's not a joke. That's not a joke within the short time they had to make them and use them. We had no option other than to refine crude petroleum for movement. Movement inside Biafra was maintained because our people were able to refine petrol into gas and petrol and the rest of it.
The major operational base, the famous Ojukwu Bunker and the Voice of Biafra, now houses the National War Museum. We're housing some of the relics of the Civil War, including the very famous Obunigwe.
In the army section, you have the armored cars. Then, at the annex is the Obunigwe. The mass killer, two of them flying Obunigwe and in his sitting place. Then these armored cars, majority of them were manufactured by the defunct Biafra. Then some of them were captured by the Nigerians or by the Biafran during the war course, even including the one they captured at Uguta, they call Uguta Boy, and even the one, the gunboat they sunk at Uguta Lake, which is still there. we made a platform to exhibit it until it's brought. So all these ones were war relics. And I want to point out that recently the army came and also helped us to maintain it.
Though the museum now wears a toga commemorating a peaceful and unified Nigeria, our tour shows the magnitude of effort put in by the Biafrans towards self-actualization. The Biafran army also built an airstrip in Uli in Anambra State, where fighter jets took off and landed. Today, urban renewal and development is kicked in, with numerous houses encroaching. But there are now calls for it to be added on the list of national monuments.
When we lost Enugu Airport, of course we had to refer to Uli. We started using it. And because the Nigerian Air Force had superiority over Biafra, that time we didn't have any aircraft. So they could come in broad daylight, start strafing or bombing or doing anything they liked. What we had to do was use machine guns, and that's no answer. Then we started acquiring aircraft, the one we call mini-coin. They'll take off, come to the sneak to the target, shoot them, and they're gone.
The airstrip, to my mind, and to any good Igbo man, served wonderful purpose for the Biafran survival. The airstrip served as a place through which relief came into this place. Despite the fact that they were pursued, the planes were pursued by the federal troops. The Biafran intelligence unit had to construct what they call a bunker, the first time in history of the world, where they had a bunker so that once the plane lands, it runs into a bunker so that the overriding or intruding plane does not catch it.
One of the sore points of the Biafra Civil War is the Asaba massacre of October 1967. It remains a sad commentary to the nation, and many who witnessed the incident believe the nation must not go through a similar path. Chief Philip Asiodu is an elder statesman, Professor Patu Tomi, a political economist, and Boniface Chizie is an economist, all of them indigenes of present-day Delta State.
When, as should be expected, the Biafrans then embarked on asymmetric warfare. So, guerrilla warfare, hit and run. So they come in the night, they will hit Nigerian soldiers, kill some of them and disappear. Out of that anger and fury that they've killed them, they'll be looking for any man that's in sight was targeted. And many Asaba men, able-bodied men, were killed. I remember vividly on 2 occasions I had gone to school. I went to school to teach and got stuck in the school. And got stuck in the school for quite some time, because it wasn't safe to leave the school and go back home.
One night, I crossed the Niger in a canoe from what was the Biafran side onto a war theater on the other side, what was the Midwest. And when I crossed, we had this horrible incident in Asaba where there had been a massacre of people who had come out to demonstrate, to wave, to welcome the federal troops that were approaching Asaba. And men were lined up this way, women this way, and cold-blooded slaughter of thousands of people, literally. And so here I was coming to Asaba with a group of friends, family. We're trying to cross from one part of the road to the other, from the bush, the jungle, as it were, and crossing the road that led from Asaba through Ibuza, Washi, down, and we were, quote-unquote, captured. And we were lined up, men this way, women this way, and some fellow was saying to us, "Where are the rest of the rebels? Where are the rest of the rebels?"
The war ends in 1970 with General Gowon declaring no victor, no vanquished, and instituted what he termed the 3 R's: rehabilitation, reconstruction, and reconciliation.
Hello, Your Excellency.
Glad to see you again.
My pleasure.
How are you?
Very well indeed.
Glad to see you again.
I, Major General Philip Effiong, officer administering the government of the Republic of Biafra, now wish to make the following declaration. That we affirm we are loyal Nigerian citizens and accept the authority of the Federal Military Government of Nigeria.
Materials were given to enable people build back their shacks. But quite interestingly, in places like Lagos, even the people who had properties and gone away, rents were collected, kept intact. When they came back, they were given by the Wanko and others. It's only in Port Harcourt, unfortunately, that they did these abandoned properties and took over people's properties. And you know, the Igbos had developed much of Port Harcourt. That was very, very unfortunate. And we must praise the Igbo man for his courage and resilience. In no time at all, despite the pogroms and all that, they were back in many of these cities.
However, this gesture of no victor, no vanquish was not well executed.
For me, the Civil War never ended. At the end of that war, it never ended. It's still going on. I had no family house. My poor mother went back to claim the property she was beating into a coma by people whom she had helped all her life and sent to school because she's an Igbo woman and now Port Harcourt belonged to another group of people. They forgot the sacrifices that the Igbos made. It's still going on. No apology has ever been made about that.
Unfortunately, after the change of government, with the program that we have, which was going to allow them to be able to be equal in all respect, unfortunately, yes, those that came probably did not have the belief and the philosophy that we have, that my government have, in order to ensure fairness to every part of Nigeria.
The unity, we saw it from fighting to remain united. We didn't do much in trying to get people to indoctrinate them through political interactions and the rest of them. So the moment you reintroduce politics, the first thing that came to our minds were what political parties and political system used to be before the Civil War. You saw that as a starting point. And once you see that, you could hardly change it.
Some of the combatants and commentators believe that not much has been done in the reconciliation and reintegration process.
How can I forget the past in this condition? Hunger is a disease. I have no food to eat. I will always tell my children this story for the sake of posterity.
Yes.
They promised to pay us some compensation. They even asked us to register for it, but nothing has happened since then.
They call for a robust political inclusion and infrastructure development in the Southeast, amongst others.
It's now 50 years after the war,
and the reason for the war are still with us. All we are saying is that those issues that made our fathers go for war should be addressed. When there is true reconciliation, all these remnants of ventilation of anger and people venting their anger from this will downs.
5 zones have benefited to serve within this country in the office of the president. The only way to establish that there is no victor, no vanquish is simple. A Southeasterner that will do what the president of Nigeria by 2023.
The people from Biafra, people from the southern region of Nigeria have been calling for roundtable discussion so that we can renegotiate Nigeria. We can discuss about our future as a people. Like I said earlier, we believe in Nigeria. Here in every part of Nigeria, you will see Biafrans. The Igbo people are there believing that we are one.
So how best can healing and national reconciliation be achieved?
The challenges we have in this country, apart from the cost of election and what have you, stems from the fact that people stay too long in power. And people do everything to remain in power. Let us do one term. Within that one term, it can go to south, south, southeast, southwest, north central, this, that, and we start all over again. 6 times 6, 36 years. In 36 years, it's gone round all the geopolitical zones, and we start again. By the time we do that, some other people would have gotten sense of belonging. They would have gotten sense of belonging. The Igbos would have been given the opportunity to test power and then let them now decide whether they want to misuse power and forget about it forever, amongst other things. But give them that opportunity.
In 1991, after the return to democracy, Chief Ralph Uwazurike founded the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOB, a group canvassing for the secession and sovereignty of eastern Nigeria. Another group, the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, with similar objective, was founded by Nnamdi Kanu in 2012. He and his supporters resurfaced the agitation for the sovereign state of Biafra using an underground radio station called Radio Biafra to propagate their ideas. There were also protests, sometimes leading to confrontation with security agencies. In one of the face-off the group had with security agencies in his father's house in Oka, Anambra State, some persons sustained injuries, but government came out strong to deny the allegations, claiming that the group constantly violated the constitution. Eventually, the group was declared a terrorist group and then proscribed. The group has not stopped its agitation, as they now operate more using social media.
For him.
At the recent Never Again conference, some key suggestions on how to forge closer unity among ethnic nationalities in Nigeria were mooted. Many believe that there is need to address the issue of fairness and proper integration of the people from the southeast.
Nigerians have to reflect on the road we have passed. For example, the proposition can be made that we went to war because there was a failure of leadership. And in saying that, I will remind us that the 3 regions were really doing very well. The critical question is, why does Nigeria wobble so badly in spite of experience that should be driving it forward, and what can be done about it? I think we can list reasons to include 1, a mistaken view that Nigeria is about how much you can extract from the national cake. A cake to eat makes poor tomorrow, but producing makes rich always. There is a duty that each and every one of us has. It is the duty to believe that it can be different, and that if we can dream it, we can make it happen. We are already in a crisis. If we in our sober deference to reality, find that we can no longer hold together as one country, then let us together peacefully find a rational solution. And let us never again plunge into any kind of war among us.
That leadership, on whichever side, is about to repeat, yet again, the ultimate folly of sacrificing 2.5 million lives on the altar of absolutes, any absolute whatsoever. We should borrow that African-American credo, paint them on prayer scrolls, flood the skies in their millions with kites bearing that inscription, and balloons that read very simply, African lives matter.
Another issue raised is the need for the present leadership to consider merits in appointments as a way of national reconciliation.
By now, there is no ethnic group, there is no group in Nigeria that does not have very qualified persons. We should go back to merit. We should go back to merit in addressing issues. The idea of a geographical disadvantage, and it doesn't fly anymore.
The entity called Biafra no longer exists as Nigeria has once again become a one united country. But the lessons from this war must always guide the leaders and the citizens of the country in the act of governance, loyalty, and commitment towards upholding the vision of the founding fathers. No part of this country must feel deprived enough that it will have to resort to war. And one way to start is perhaps the issue of constitution review, adoption on merits in appointment, and the issue of Igbo presidency. These may just be a few reasons for the Igbos to feel a sense of belonging.